For those of you guys who have been on my channel for a while, you have probably known that I've started an Iceberg series on my YouTube channel in which I debunk or explain different parts of different iceberg image videos depending on what they are and what they talk about. For those of you guys who are new to my channel and do not know what an iceberg image video is, basically an iceberg image video is from the top, it's what people mainly know about, and as it goes down to the bottom, it becomes much more obscure in its content and certain stuff like that. I have done 2 previous iceberg image videos, the Disney iceberg and my most popular one, the Attack on Titan iceberg. So if those interest you, I recommend you go check them out. Now, as I stated in previous videos, I was going to tackle the Death Note iceberg. So that's what I'm going to do today. Credit to sevensjustbored who posted this iceberg image on the r/iceberg charts on Reddit. And last but not least, this is a complete spoiler warning for the entirety of the show. If you have not watched Death Note, I highly suggest you click off this video. And without further ado, let's get started into the video. How to use the Death Note. Now, throughout the show, we do see different rules that are in the notebook that show how the killings of different people take place. Different rules such as the human whose name is written in this note shall die, or this note will not take effect unless the writer has the person's face in their mind when writing his/her name. Therefore, people sharing the same name will not be affected, are a couple of rules that are in the notebook. Now, as the show continues, we do see that there are some fake rules that Ryuk has wrote into the Death Note, such as if the person using the note fails to consecutively write the names of people to be killed within 13 days of each other, then the user will die. Or if you make this note unusable by tearing it up or burning it, all the humans who have touched the note till then will die. Anime versus manga. Now, a lot of Death Note fans have noticed that the manga and the anime do change a bit in their portrayal, with the manga being much more in detail and the anime just like kind of in a way excusing some of the stuff and not really going into detail about it. Such as the manga exploring Light's mentality more than the anime, L's reaction to Light's true identity during his death, the origin of L's name was deeply explored in the manga, and even the ending of Death Note, which was changed in the anime, which I will get into later. Shiginamis follow humans who find the notebook. Now, as shown in the first episode, when Ryuk makes his appearance in front of Light, we do see that whoever touches the Death Note is able to see any Shigenami that's in charge of the Death Note. When a Death Note is dropped in the human world, humans who pick up the notebook may use that Death Note to kill others. However, if a notebook ever reaches the human world and is picked up by a human, the Shigenami must accompany the human until they die, or the Death Note is willingly given back. Shigenami can explain the purpose of the Death Note to the human, but this is done at their discretion. Kira is multiple people. Now, as we all know, Light Yagami is the original Kira, in which the name was given to him due to him trying to rid the world of criminals, and he would put their names in the Death Note. Now, as the story goes on, we do see that multiple people decide to take on the identity of Kira. So you have Light Yagami, who is known as the first Kira, and El Kira, Misa Amane, who is known as the second Kira and the copycat Kira, Kinosuke Hijuki, also known as the third Kira and the Yotsuba Kira, Teru Mikami, also known as the fourth Kira and the X Kira, C Kira, also known as the fifth Kira and the cheap Kira. And last but not least, Minoru Tanaka, also known as the 8 Kira and the auction Kira. Ryuk likes apples. Apples are Ryuk's favorite food and the only thing he is seen eating. He likes apples from the human world because he finds them juicy and has stated that they are an addiction for him, just like how alcohol or cigarettes are for humans. He has only been seen eating red apples. Death Note live action movies. Now, under the Japanese circuit with the movies, Death Note has had about 6 installments of different movies that are live action, which are Death Note, Death Note The Last Name, Matsuna's spin-off, which is a short film, L Change the World, Death Note New Generation, and Death Note Light Up the New World, and also one from the US, which was a 2017 Netflix adaptation of Death Note, which, according to many sources, the movie completely sucks. With the concept of the story changing that Light was actually bullied, but in the actual source material, Light was a really popular kid, and the names completely changing from Light Yagami to Light Turner, and many more stuff like that. Death Note memory loss. Now, as we saw in a couple of episodes with either Light or Misa, we did see that the characters did lose their memory after forfeiting the Death Note. The rules specifically state that you will lose your memories if you forfeit the Death Note, not that a Shiganami will necessarily wipe them. And once you touch the Death Note you owned previously, you will regain your memories. Misa committed suicide at the end. Now, at the end of Death Note, as we see Light succumbing to his wounds, we see Misa all dressed up in makeup, an outfit, and we see her seemingly going somewhere. At the end, we do see her on the top of a building, on a rooftop, looking out to the streets below. It is theorized by many fans that Misa committed suicide after Light's death. Now, to many people, it isn't really a surprise due to the fact that Misa had always wanted to do anything and everything for Light. Now, as we see Misa's outfit, we see that she's wearing a maid dress, and a lot of people have point this out as symbolism that Misa is possibly wearing a maid dress because she was somewhat of a servant to Light. Shiganami Eyes deal. Now, as we see with Misa and Mr. Yagami, both inherit the Shiganami Eyes due to deals they made with the Shiganami. Making the Shiganami Eye deal is the most common way for a human to obtain the Shiganami Eyes. A human Death Note owner can make the trade with the Shiganami who possesses them and gain the eyes in exchange for half of their remaining lifespan. Now, with the power of the Shiganami Eyes, you are able to see the person's name and their lifespan, which helps people who obtain the Death Note. Shiganamis can die. Now, when Rem tells Misa how to kill a Shiganami, we are told a story of a fellow Shiganami who fell in love with a human and saved the human from death. Now, a Shiganami cannot do that. If they do keep a person from dying, they will be turned into dust. Some Shiganami tend to forget to write names down, causing them to die. Shiganami who die are reduced to dust, and their remaining lifespan, converted to human time, is given to the human they saved. If a Shiganami continues to fill their Death Note with names, they will live forever under normal circumstances. Death Note trading cards. Now, there is a list of 100 unique cards and 4 rarity levels in the Death Note trading card game, which are normal, special rare, parallel rare, and secret rare. The Death Note trading card rare holo can go for $216.11 on eBay. Shiganami Realm. The Shiganami Realm is where Shiganami live and dwell throughout their existence. The Shiganami Realm is connected to the human world by a portal through which Shiganami alone are able to travel. They are able to remain in the human world as long as their Death Note is in a human's possession. I'll take a potato chip and eat it. Now, this is a very well-known meme in the Death Note fandom, in which it is a memorable quote uttered by Light Yagami from the 2006 anime series Death Note. In memes, the catchphrase and scene have been used in various YouTube videos in which it's used as an exploitable in remixes.
I'll take a potato chip and eat it.
Ryuk killed Light. Now, this is the actual ending in the manga, in which Ryuk is actually the one who kills Light. Now, when Light Yagami is down, he begs for Ryuk to write everybody's name in the notebook. However, Ryuk refuses, and he tells him that they kept each other from being bored for a while, but now he was done with it. And this actually shows Ryuk's true character, in which he never cared for Light and he betrays him. So I think this would have been a much better ending if we saw this in the anime, and I think a lot of people could agree. But anyway, it just shows how this entire thing was just basically a game to Ryuk. Death Note users go to Purgatory. Now, Purgatory is the limbo-like state in which you haven't done anything too bad to get into hell, or you still need to complete some tasks to get into heaven. Now, the Death Note states that users of the Death Note do not go to either or, so some fans assume that it is possibly Purgatory. However, according to the author of Death Note, they actually go to what is called nothingness. which basically is that there is nothing after death. Ryuk was going to be human-like. Now, according to the author of Death Note, Ryuk was supposed to be human-like in somewhat similarity to how Light looked. According to the author, he states, "My original idea for the pilot chapter was for Ryuk to look like a young man similar to Light, but with black hair and wings. I had the notion that Shigenami should look like attractive rock stars," he wrote. "But if he were more attractive than Light, Ryuk would appear to be the main character and things wouldn't work as well. So then my editor told me that he didn't have to look like a human, and I erased what I had and created the current version." L and Nier have autism. Now, this is a theory that has not been confirmed, but a lot of people have speculated that this could be plausible. L and Nier are obviously very gifted individuals, and if they are supposed to have autism, they are at near 7th level in terms of their intellect and are clearly very aware of the world around them, as is often the case with a person diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. Now, this particular syndrome has been associated with the two due to the amount of high intellect that both carry. Now, like I stated before, this is a theory, and I'm going to be going a bit more into detail on it from someone who posted this in September 13th, 2017 from Mindmaster L. As the title says, I think L has autism. For people who don't know what that is or having the wrong idea about autism, people with autism are having a mind which works a bit different than by normal people. We can react and act a bit different or quote-unquote odd in society. It is important to know that there are different types of autism, so people with autism can be very different from each other. Why did I say we earlier? It's because I have the type classic autism myself, and based on the facts from autism, I found based on myself and other information, I can prove that L. Lale is autistic. At first, it is important to know what type of autism L can have. The chance that L has Asperger's syndrome is very big. People with the Asperger's syndrome do have similar problems with the way of acting in society as people with classic autism, but there is one important difference. People with Asperger's syndrome are highly intelligent. Does that sound familiar with someone? Now, this does seem very plausible, but like I said, it's just a theory and we really don't know unless it becomes confirmed by the author. Death Note one-shot, also known as the Akira story, a Death Note one-shot sequel chapter was released on February 4th, 2020 in the March edition of Jump Square magazine. The chapter is a continuation of the original Death Note manga series, which ended in 2006 and last had a one-shot chapter in 2008. The story explores the events that occur when the Shigenami comes down to Earth. The plot is what was brought by the Shigenami that came down to Earth what it seemed. When the Shigenami Ryuk returns to Earth more than 10 years after his last visit, he gives a death note to the top scoring student in Japan, hoping that he will follow in Light Yagami's footsteps. He is surprised when Minoru Tanaka returns the notebook and asks him to return in 2 years' time. Now a high school student, Minoru accepts the notebook from Ryuk, but he has no plans to use it himself. With the Shigenami's help and his own integrity, he auctions it off anonymously as his actions are followed and predicted by Nier. The United States of America buys it for a sum that leaves every Japanese citizen under the age of 60 set for life. But the King of Death creates a new rule of the Death Note that thwarts Minoru and the US president's plans. Banned in China. School authorities in Xinjiang, China, banned the manga in 2005 after students were found with an imitation Death Note books in which they written the names of classmates, enemies, and teachers. The ban was later widened to major cities including Beijing and Shanghai. Death Note VR. Now, to my knowledge, there are 2 Death Note VR games that exist, which one of them was made for the 2017 live adaptation of Death Note by Netflix, and another one is Death Note VR Escape Game. Now, the Death Note VR Escape Game is a virtual reality game based on the Death Note series. The player acts as Misa Amane, who works with Rem to escape a basement that is flooding. Death Note video games. Now, multiple Death Note video games have been produced, just like the 2 I mentioned previously. So, the different Death Note games that have been produced are Death Note Kira Game, Death Note Successors to L, L the Prologue to Death Note Spiraling Trap, Death Note VR Escape Game, also Lonia, I'm sorry if I butchered that, Line, Jamputi Heroes, and Death Note the VR Experience. There is no heaven or hell. Now, it has been speculated by many people what happens in the afterlife, but what can be guaranteed is that no matter what you do while you're alive, everybody goes to the same place once you die. Death is equal. Now, according to a theory made by Gelatin Man, who posted this on the r/fan theories on Reddit, they write, Death Note, there is no heaven or hell. Ryuk's omen that those who use the Death Note cannot go to the afterlife is misleading. We've seen the Light Yagami lie and make up fake rules for the Death Note, so why should Ryuk be considered a true, reputable source? He put the Death Note on Earth because he was bored. He's a trickster and probably tested Light with that proposition. After that, he becomes a semi-affable weird friend Light has for the rest of the series. The Shiganami realm is far different from any conventional definition of the afterlife, as it is just a supernatural dimension. They are the gods of fate, but truthfully there is really no consequence to using the Death Note. You could use it, remove all memories of using it, and carry on with your life scot-free. Now, somebody commented on this theory and said, this is basically canon. From volume 12, all humans will, without exception, eventually die. After they die, the place they go is MU. The creator of Death Note was heavily influenced by Buddhism. MU means nothingness, the implication that life just ends and there is no afterlife. That said, the author clarified that all he was talking about was that no humans can come back to life. The author is hiding their identity. The writer behind Death Note. Not much is known about their personal life, not their name, birthday, gender, etc. Their entire identity is a closely guarded secret, and the public doesn't know much about them, other than the fact that they were born in Tokyo, Japan. Sugumi Oba, I'm sorry if I butchered that, is actually a pen name they created. Nier and Mello were originally going to be L's children. Now, as we see in Death Note, Nier and Mello are two orphans from the Whammy house that were worthy of being L's successor. Now, I'm going to be honest, when I first watched it, I thought that Nier was L's younger brother, in which he takes on the Kita case in order to avenge L after his death. Now, however, according to the creator of Death Note, Sugumi Oba, I'm sorry for butchering that, was planning on making L the father of Mello and Nier, but later decided not to because he couldn't imagine L having sex. Now, when you think about it, that's kind of pretty funny, but it actually is kind of interesting to see how Nier and Mello could have been related to L. Light survives. In the anime and the manga, it is shown that in both versions, Light Yagami dies. However, there is a theory that has gone around in which Light Yagami actually survives and is reincarnated, and that theory is Light is reincarnated as a Shiganami. Now, this is a popular theory that many fans have from an OVA in which there is a particular unnamed Shiganami that a lot of fans have speculated is possibly Light Yagami reincarnated. Now, this popular theory is that the unnamed Shiganami featured in the anime OVA Death Note Relight 1 is the reincarnation of Light Yagami. However, since a similar-ish Shiganami appears in the manga while Light is still in school, this is debatable. Now, I will be going a bit into this theory, giving you people's reasoning for why this could be Light and people's argument on why this is not Light. Now, certain evidence that has been used to prove that this is Light Yagami is that this Shiganami wears a coat that looks very similar to the one that Light was wearing when he died, which also seems to be stained with blood, which might be alluding to Light being shot by Matsuda before he died. He sports a red tie around his head that is similar to the tie of Light's high school uniform. He carries a messenger bag almost identical to the one Light often carried with him when he was in high school. The Shiganami's mouth is shaped like Light's Gita smile. He also has bright red eyes like Light's red eyes at certain points in the anime. Light also stands in the Shiganami realm during the end of the second intro sequence, a possible foreshadowing of his reincarnation. The unnamed Shiganami also sports goggles, which could allude to the fact that Light never made the deal for the Shiganami eyes. And in the anime, right after Light regains his memories, he says, "Just as I have planned," in a voice identical to that of the unnamed Shiganami. Now, the arguments against this are, while the goggles could be the Shiganami eye backups, they greatly resemble the ones worn by Matt, so there does not appear to be anything godly about them. They may also symbolize how Light did not make the Shigenami ideal. A similar Shigenami was seen in the manga while Light was still in school. He possesses an axe-like weapon of bones that is not similar to anything Light uses, and he is taller than Light. Now, this entire theory is very, very interesting, and it does seem plausible that he could have been reincarnated as a Shigenami, but of course, like every theory on this list, it hasn't been confirmed yet. Shiganamis were once human. Now, this is a particular theory that a lot of people have speculated that Death Note users become Shigenami in the afterlife. However, this theory falls apart for two reasons. One reason is just point blank that in the Death Note manga and anime, it is said that anybody who uses the Death Note will not go to heaven or hell, but basically nothingness. And the other reasoning comes from this theory that says, it specifically says that the King of Shigenami gives Shigenami their Death Note upon quote-unquote creation, meaning that they either create themselves by fulfilling certain criteria or are created by another god. Shigenami equal god of death, and their opposite, Sozokami, equal god of creation. Maybe Sozokami creates Shigenami to equalize the realms. I personally believe that Shigenami are created by using a Death Note and dying. Shigenami cannot have existed forever if they have to lengthen their lifespans by killing. They can't have lived before humans and thus cannot have always existed. L's spirit in the final episode. In the final Death Note anime episode, New World, Ryuk writes Light's name down in his Death Note, killing him. However, just before Light died, there is a scene of what looks to be the spirit of L appearing in front of Light as he is dying on a stairway while the ending credits of the episode are playing. It is questionable to whether the image of L is supposed to be his spirit or just meant to be Light hallucinating, thinking L finally defeated him. In the Death Note universe, it is confirmed by the writer Tsugumi Oba that there is no heaven and hell, and even no afterlife for humans when they die. Death Note changes forms. I personally do not know what this could be because I cannot find anything on it, so I don't know if I'm overlooking it or whatever, but I just can't find anything on it. So if anybody can find it, please put it in the comments because I can't find it. But what I personally think this could mean is that the Death Note changes forms based on who has it, but I'm not really sure and I don't want to get it wrong because I don't know what it is. So like I said, if you do find something on this, please put it in the comments down below. Rem is alive. As we all know, Rem dies after writing L's name in the Death Note. However, one speculated question has emerged in which people have wondered why Rem didn't die after writing the businessman's name in the Death Note. Now, according to this person who wrote this in the r/Death Note forum on Reddit, they brought up the question, can someone explain how Rem doesn't die when she kills off the person Misa said she would kill when trying to prove to the businessman that she was a second Gita? At the time, she had no book and asked Rem to kill someone for her to prove it. This is the scene when they are in the car together. Why does Rem turn into dust when killing L and not the other person? Is it because it was out of love to save Misa, or because the person was already about to die? Now, this question was answered by someone in which they said, killing that businessman did not increase Misa's lifespan, so Rem didn't die. Killing L killed Rem because L was so close to catching Misa again and she could have been executed. So to answer your question, it is both love and an increasing lifespan. L knew Light was Gita from the start. As we all know, L is one of the greatest detectives in the world and he has solved every single case and he's always been right about who the suspect was. Now, as we know in the first couple of episodes, when Light and L meet in person, L tells Light that he is L. Now, what could be the reason for this? A reason for this can be that he wanted to gain some sort of reaction from Light, seeing if Gita reacted that this is L in the living flesh, he's got already the face to identify him, he just needs the real name. Now, throughout the anime, L's suspicion of Light wavers from episode to episode. Generally, though, he says there is about a 5% chance that Light is Gita. Despite those low odds he gives to his comrades, he still refuses to give up on Light as a suspect. And as we know, until his death, he had always kept Light in mind that he is Gita. Light is immortal. When searching this particular one up, I couldn't find anything specific, but I will be giving 2 things on what I think this particularly could mean. Now, the first one is that it has something to do with Light being reincarnated as a Shiganami, meaning Light cannot die, he is immortal, right? And the second one that counterattacks this is that Light is not immortal and he dies like every other human. For example, any human that is killed by the Death Note will just die. Any user of the Death Note will go to nothingness. They won't go to heaven, hell, anything like that. And like the Death Note states, death is inevitable. It's going to happen to everybody. So this also could mean that Light, his entire mentality in getting rid of criminals with the Death Note is still immortal. In which at the end of Death Note, there was a extra chapter, you can say, in which people are still worshiping Light and what he did for humanity in some cases. So that's another thing that this particular one can mean, but like I said, I'm not really sure specifically on what it is. I was just giving you examples. And so if you can actually find something on this, if anyone can, please leave it in the comments down below. Nier was controlling Mikami. Now, this theory completely falls apart because as we see in the show, Mikami and Light give themselves away, with the Death Note being fake and anybody's names that Mikami wrote in there, whoever was the one name that did not show up, which was Light would be Kita. Now, another thing that a lot of fans can point out about this is that after L's death, Light started slacking off, in which a lot of people question, how is it that Light could not tell that that was a fake Death Note? Now, Nier did not control Mikami's actions. Mikami gave himself and Light away by thinking that Light wouldn't be able to handle the situation. Mikami didn't even realize that Nier stole the real Death Note and that he was in possession of a fake one. However, many fans do believe that Nier actually did use the Death Note on Mikami, so this theory can be left up to interpretation. But how this version goes is that Nier actually uses the Death Note to kill Churu Mikami. Mikami's sudden suicide could be easily explained by the fact that his god, Light Yagami, breaks down before his eyes. Mikami is also facing at least a life in prison, possibly the death penalty, yet the sudden and dramatic way he ends himself is not only jarring, it goes against Mikami's upright nature. So, was he manipulated into suicide by a Death Note? In the final episode, Nier reveals that he has held the notebook on his person for quite some time, so he certainly had the means. Mikami's death makes wrapping up the case easier, and Nier's apathy would likely allow him to do such a thing. I personally don't think that Nier needed to use the Death Note because Light and Mikami seem to have given themselves away, especially since the notebook was already a fake and Mikami wrote everyone's name down but Light, so I don't think there was no need for it. But who knows, this theory is actually pretty interesting when you look into it. Death Note Alternate Universe. Now, I will be bringing this one up in the next layer of the iceberg for somewhat of a similar reason, but let me explain what this one is about. Now, many fans have speculated what would have possibly happened to Light if he wasn't killed and defeated by Nier. Now, the Death Note alternate ending is a possible ending to show something else that might have happened to Light Yagami after his death. It is unknown if the ending is real or fake. There is a lack of evidence to prove the ending to be real. It has really only ever been seen on the internet, and there are mainly English versions of the ending circulating, but it has become very popular in the Death Note fandom. Due to the fact that there is no proof, it is only left to fans to decide for themselves. The ending only exists in manga form. There is no anime adaptation for the ending. I will only be giving a small synopsis of this particular one because a title in the next layer of the iceberg does go more into detail about it, but here is what the alternative ending would be. Basically, Light survives, in which he is still Kira for the remainder of his life. The story starts off in what appears to be an alternative future to the primary Death Note story. Light Yagami is an old man, and he is sitting in an office writing criminal names in his Death Note. After a short while, he tells Ryuk to kill him by writing his name in the Death Note. Light claims that after so many years of being Kira, he is finally tired of a life of killing others. Ryuk agrees to Light's request, and so Ryuk writes Light's name in the Death Note and Light dies. BB was a Shiganami that died and was reincarnated as a human. This character is coming from the novel Death Note, Another Note, in which this character BB, or their real name Beyond Birthday, has basically caused somewhat of this theory. Now, this theory revolves around the fact that BB has the Shiganami eyes, but it's been around with this character for a while, so a lot of people speculate that this particular character was born with the Shiganami eyes. This also leads many fans to speculate that BB was actually a Shiganami that died and was reincarnated as a human. However, a lot of fans believe that this is not the case, and BB has the Shiganami eyes because of this particular reason. Because a person having a Death Note is cursed. But the Shiganami that broke the rules and stayed with BB, and even disrespected the Shiganami King by not obeying his orders, BB's parents died after his birth, and he was alone ever since. Therefore, it makes sense to say that BB had the eyes since birth, and basically how he could have gotten it in shorter terms was that his parents obtained the Death Note, they died, and he was cursed with it, with the Shiganami eyes. And this can kind of make sense if his parents died with some sort of particular reason involving the Death Note. The Shiganami eyes could have been a curse to BB, in which the Shiganami eyes cuts the person's lifespan in half. So that could have been the curse bestowed upon him due to his parents. L died of diabetes. This is a theory having to do with the amount of sugar that L consumes, as we see in mainly every episode. Now, as we all know, Rem was actually the one who killed him by writing his name in the Death Note. However, many fans speculate that he died of diabetes due to the amount of sugar intake he usually takes within his body. However, as we know, L eats all those sweets because that makes sure he's always alert, which is why we see the bags under his eyes. And as he says in a particular scene with Misa, he makes the comment that eating cake will not make you fat because all of it gets used in your brain, which is what L mainly does. He uses his sugars that he intakes, and he uses that and it goes to his brain to solve different cases.
Actually, I found that you don't gain any weight as long as you burn calories by using your brain.
Light is living through every death he caused. Now, as I mentioned in the last layer, this particular title goes more in detail with the alternate universe title from layer 5. In short, the alternate universe title was that Light survives. He stays as Kira for the remainder of his life until he asks for Ryuk to write his name in the Death Note and kill him. Straight after Light's death, Light wakes up in a mysterious valley and is no longer an old man. Light now resembles his former self. Suddenly, Ryuk appears before Light and tells Light that he is in the Shiganami realm. Light begins to wonder what will happen to him and why he was brought there. Suddenly, Light hears a voice saying the name of his first victim and starts to feel a pain in his chest and dies of a heart attack, resembling the way his first victim died of a heart attack. However, Light comes back to life again, hears the voice saying his second victim's name, car accident, and is then run over and killed by a truck that appears out of nowhere, resembling the death of his second victim. Yet again, Light comes back to life and wonders to himself what is going on, until Ryuk interrupts and tells him that he's experiencing the atonement that a human does whenever a human being uses a Death Note. Ryuk tells Light that he will die the same amount of times and in the same ways as the humans that he had killed during his lifetime of using the Death Note. After resembling the suicide of Misora and Naomi, which was the FBI agent he tricked and killed, Light starts to laugh incredibly loudly, and Ryuk thinks that Light has already gone crazy from all the fear. Light reveals that after all the people he has killed, he has a huge amount of time before he disappears, and that it will be more than enough for some plan he has in his mind. Ryuk asks Light what he's thinking, and Light replies saying that he is going to look for the Shiganami King and make a deal with him. Light says that instead of warranting his own safety, he will lend the king his intelligence with an amazing strategy to rebuild the Shiganami's rotten world. The story ends with Light and Ryuk walking away on their journey to find the Shiganami King. L survived / became a ghost. We talked about this one earlier in the Iceberg, in which L's spirit was seen at the end of Death Note. However, as we all know, L couldn't have survived due to the fact that Rem wrote his name down in the Death Note to avoid Misa getting executed. And L couldn't have possibly been a ghost due to the fact that it states in the Death Note that once a human is dead, they can never come back to life. All humans, without exception, will eventually die. After they die, the place they go is MU, or nothingness. Repeating what I said a couple of layers prior about L being a ghost and Light being able to see him, this really wouldn't have been possible due to the evidence I just gave you. Also, with the theory that many fans have that this was actually a figment of Light's imagination before his death. Matsuda is the main character. Now, as we know, Matsuda has always been the character that is always shrugged off for any of his ideas or certain stuff like that. But when it came down to it, he was the one who shot Light when it was proposed that he was Kira and he was exposed. This theory was proposed by the Redditor big_swag69420, who posted this under the r/Death Note forum on Reddit, in which they state that Light was never Kira, but Matsuda was. In short terms, this theory puts the notion that Matsuda found the Death Note first, took pages off of it, left it there for Light to find, and played dumb to make people not suspect that he was Kira. People who also put comments on this theory stated that when it came to the false rule, Matsuda was actually the one who asked Ryuk to put the false rule in there, in which Light Yagami believes is true at the first time he sees it, which was if you write their name in the Death Note, anybody whose name is written in there can be controlled for 20 days before they die. And others do suspect that this could be true because it does explain why Matsuda was eager to kill Light when everyone was trying to get Light in custody. I don't know about you guys, but this theory to me seems a bit far-fetched, but it is pretty interesting to see how Matsuda could have been the main character and possibly even Kira himself. But I don't really see it possible, but it is a very good theory. Deleted scenes. I personally do not know if there are any other deleted scenes in Death Note. However, one that particularly kept coming up was L's funeral. Now, before I get into this one, please, if you do find any more deleted scenes of Death Note, please put them down below. I apologize if I am missing any, but this was one that mainly kept popping up when I searched this up. To be completely honest, when I was watching Death Note, I had watched the anime in sub. So I was actually expecting this scene to show up in the show because I continuously saw it whenever I had saw the show being brought up. I was somewhat disappointed because I had thought that I had missed something in the show, that this could have been at the end, like how sometimes Attack on Titan puts small little ending things at the end of its credits. Now, it goes both ways by fans if it was supposed to be in the anime and it was deleted, or if it was supposed to go on its OVA. According to one fan on Reddit, they say it wasn't quote-unquote deleted. It was just something the anime studio invented specifically for the first Relight movie. It was never in the original story, so it's not like it was something they left out. And another person comments, I'm pretty sure it was made specifically for the anime composition film, which was ordered slightly differently. But I also think it's kind of a dumb scene, and I personally think he's freaking out and screaming like he's insane really sort of takes away the impact of him doing it later in the series. Now, it can be debated if it went in the anime and was deleted or not, but to many fans, a lot of them still found this scene pretty disturbing. Religious undertone. Now, Death Note is completely littered with religious symbolism due to the show talking about death, heaven, hell, and stuff just like that. Death Note is full of symbolism, from the Catholic Christian undertones, apples, divine rule, and the Shigenami realm, to literary masterpieces such as Macbeth, Julius Caesar, and Sherlock Holmes. Death Note has become one of the few anime to have extremely deep roots in both Western and Japanese cultures. The most obvious symbols used in the series are the apples and the conflicting ideals of justice between Kira and his opposition. Apples are symbols of incorporating a variety of meanings with a variety of contexts. They can mean knowledge, wisdom, luxury, joy, and or death. What can be applicable to the series is how the apple represents temptation and the original sin, considering that the first opening of the anime is alluding the apple to the Death Note, which is similar to that version of the apple in that regard. More symbolism such as justice, doves and crows, and color tones are shown in the show. Throughout the Death Note anime, many characters are animated with different tones surrounding them, particularly for their hair. Light Yagami is assigned a red color indicating power, rage, fierceness, danger, determination, and even evil intentions. L and Nier are assigned blue colors indicating tranquility, calmness, confidence, and intelligence. Every Death Note is fake. When searching through Reddit, I couldn't find much on this theory, so if anybody can find it, please put it down in the comments, because I really don't want to get it wrong. So what I do propose, it could mean is that one, like Death Note is just a fictional story, and that every Death Note that you buy for anything like that is fake, right? Or it could mean possibly that the people who took on the identity of Kira, every notebook they had was a fake Death Note. However, I don't know how that is possible because they killed people with those notebooks. But like I said, if you can find anything on this theory, please link it down below because I don't want to get it wrong. Light was in a coma. When searching this one up, it took me straight to the Netflix live adaptation of Death Note from 2017, in which Light is rescued and put into a medically induced coma. When Light awakens, he finds the Death Note back in his possession in the hospital room and hides it. He sees on the news that Kira kept killing people while Light was in a coma, and thus Light is cleared of suspicion. L is fired from the task force in disgrace. Now, I don't know if this theory has to do with the movie. I completely doubt it because the majority of the theories on this list have to do with the show. So, since I couldn't find it, here's my proposed idea of what this could mean. So some of you may be aware of the Pokemon theory that Ash Ketchum is in a coma. Now, if you are not aware of this theory, the coma theory is basically, according to this creepypasta-inspired theory, during the first episodes of Pokemon, Ash is accidentally electrocuted by one of Pikachu's attacks and he is then slipped into a coma. What if something similar happened in the first couple of episodes in Death Note but to Light? Now, this theory I will propose may sound very far-fetched, but hear me out. So, in the first episode, when Light meets Ryuk for the first time, he is scared straight. So what if, just what if, he was shocked into a coma? Now, being shocked to an extreme or being very scared can cause pale and clammy skin, rapid pulse, low blood pressure, chest pain, confusion, and more. Now, another one that I can point out possibly, and what a lot of fans do point out, is that maybe Light had anxiety. According to this person who posted this on Reddit, Light did not have depression, but I do believe he suffered from anxiety attacks. He was very hard on himself to be the perfect student, perfect son, perfect brother, perfect athlete, etc. before he got the Death Note, and after that he pushed himself to live up to the idea of being a literal god. So what if he had an anxiety attack that put him into a coma when meeting Ryuk for the first time? And all of the events of Death Note are Light's being in a coma. And this can kind of explain when Light is randomly having his monologues in his room, talking about how he wants to rid the world of criminals. That can explain why no one can hear him. So this was my take on the theory. If anybody can find the actual Light is in a coma theory, please link it down below in the comments because I couldn't find it. So I just decided to take my own spin on it. It does seem a bit far-fetched, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Real-life Gita killings. With the show and the manga, the Death Note notebook that many fans have bought has been used to somewhat scare others with the notebook by them writing their classmates' names in the notebook. However, there was a particular case that someone took inspiration from the show and took out this vicious act. Perhaps the most notorious case related to Death Note was the manga murder of Belgium, in which a mutilated and dismembered corpse was found in Duden Park of Forest, Brussels in 2007. Next to the body were two notes referencing the series reading "Watashi wa Kira desu," which roughly translates to "I am Kira," a reference to the secret identity / title of God that Light goes by in the story. Police were first baffled, even fearing a serial murderer was on the loose. The case remained stagnant for years until 2010 when 3 suspects were successfully tried and convicted for this strange crime. The murderers apparently knew the victim and killed him during an argument. As for the messages about Kira, they stated that they were fans of the series. Light has infinite lives and Death Note takes place during one of Light's rebirths. Now I'm going to put these two together because they kind of talk about the same thing, but there is more info on one of them than there is for the other. Now, with light having infinite lives, this possibly has to do with the alternate ending that Death Note is going to have, which I spoke about, in which Light goes to the Shiganami world after his death and has to relive every death he caused. Just like a couple of other theories on this list, I couldn't find much about this one, but in some cases I don't know how it could be plausible because the Death Note clearly states that every human is going to die regardless. So I don't know how it's possible that Light could have infinite lives, but I don't know. If somebody can find more on this theory, please link it in the comments. Now, the Light rebirth theory comes from Reddit, in which the Redditor MX78, who posted this on the r/Death Note forum on Reddit, stated, "Hey people, I've loved this anime for a couple of years now, and I was thinking back on the theory that Light, after the main story, becomes a Shiganami in rebirth. I liked the theory, and I thought of something that could expand to it. Here it goes. Ryuk at the beginning of the series states that those who use Death Notes don't go to either heaven or hell when they die. Now, I personally think that Death Note users become Shiganami when they die, and that idea contributes to this theory directly. I remember at some point during the show, Ryuk mentions having rotten organs, hence no need to eat or drink in order to survive. With that in mind, when the Shiganami in rebirth, supposedly Light, goes to Ryuk, he knows that he likes apples and gives him one. Yes, the Shiganami could have just heard from another Shiganami that Ryuk likes apples, but here's my idea. If Shiganami have rotten organs, that includes their brain as well. Maybe when Death Note users die and become Shiganami, they lose their memories of their past life, but are able to keep past habits and whatnot. If Light is that Shiganami, maybe his natural desire for justice in his life via the Death Note was what made him want to go to the human world. Maybe Light as a Shiganami somewhat remembers Ryuk and that he likes apples. This idea is more of an expansion on a fan theory, and I thought I'd post it just for fun. Death Note was a social experiment created by the Japanese government. There is very little known about this theory, and I couldn't even find anything on it, not even on Reddit. So I apologize once again for this inconvenience because this has been happening with the majority of these theories. So I apologize once again. If anybody can find the actual theory, please put in the comments. I'm sorry this is how majority of the theories are, because a lot of the theories do become very hard to find as the iceberg starts to go down. But anyway, so what I believe this could pertain to is just a what if scenario, with the premise being that somebody gets in control of this notebook, kills the world's greatest and notorious criminals, and holds everybody's life on the line if those people don't do anything bad. So I think this is just a what if scenario, but like I stated, I don't know if that's the actual theory. I don't want to get it wrong. This was just possibly something as a filler that it could mean, but I don't know. So like I stated earlier, if anybody can find more on this theory, please put it down in the comments. Shinigamis are real. In Death Note, as we all know, the Shiganamis are another word for a god of death. In Western culture, gods of death are basically the Grim Reaper. Now, I am in no way saying that Shiganamis are real or they do exist. However, what form that it could be talking about is how in different religions there is a deity that is known for death, and how that can possibly be, in a way, somewhat of a form of a Shiganami. For example, the god of death in Christianity is Azrael. Like I said, I really don't think this theory is actually talking about that Shiganamis are actually living creatures, but I believe it does talk about more or less that how there are gods of death in different religions and different beliefs and stuff like that. And like I said, a Shiganami is another word for a god of death, so that could be what this is pertaining to. Shinigamis are hallucinations. I couldn't find much on this theory, just like the other theories on this list that are hard to find due to the fact that the iceberg is starting to get lower. However, I will try to interpret this what I think it could mean. However, please correct me if I'm wrong, and if anybody can find the actual theory, please put in the comments. Now, what I believe this could mean is that since Shiganamis are gods of death, they can be perceived as a possible hallucination because, as most people know, or as what most people interpret, is that if you ever see the Grim Reaper, it kind of means you're on the brink of death in some way. So the Shiganami could possibly be a hallucination for a character being on the brink of death, but I personally don't know. But as we all do know, anybody who does touch the Death Notebook can see the Shiganami. Other people cannot. So it's somewhat like a kind of a hallucination to only the person touching the Death Note. But I don't know, really. Like I said, this was just me trying to interpret the theory. But like I said, I don't know. If anybody can find the actual theory, please put it down below. The Shiganami realm and Earth are the same, but take place in different time periods. Now, the Shiganami realm is a terrifying boneyard where Ryuk and the other death gods spend most of their time. It may have once resembled Earth. For one thing, skeletons litter the ground, and bones suggest that both animals and humans were once there. These skeletons certainly cannot belong to deceased Shiganami, since Shiganami disintegrate into dust when they die. So how did this lively place get turned into a hangout for death gods? Every episode/chapter of Death Note is personalized. First off, I don't know why it says do not research. I couldn't find anything on it, so if anybody can find something on this, like I've said before, put it down in the comments. But I will be trying to compare the episode list to what it could mean for the characters. As we know, the first episode of Death Note is titled Rebirth, which is the coined term of a rebirth of a new world in which Light finds the Death Note and proceeds to start off his killings as Gita. Confrontation is the second episode in which L is introduced and we see him trying to figure out who Gita is and certain stuff like that. As the episode list continues, the episode titles make references to what is going to happen in the episode. Now, I believe that there is much more to this particular theory. I am sorry I couldn't find much on it, so I will leave it up to you guys. I apologize once again that this is happening. I'm trying to put my own interpretation in it, but I want to sincerely apologize once again that I couldn't find much on this. So if anybody can find more on this, please put it down in the comments. I apologize once again for this. The US government is using the Death Note and the Illuminati own the Death Note. These two sound very, very far-fetched, and there is very little known about these theories, but here's my interpretation of them. Now, some people living in the US may be aware of certain instances that have happened in which random people who worked in the US government have somehow committed suicide. This theory could be referencing how the US government possibly is using a death note to kill off people who have spoken out about what's going on in the government and certain stuff like that. And the same can go for the theory about the Illuminati owning a death note. An example I can give for this is, for example, the Jeffrey Epstein case, in which they found Jeffrey Epstein dead and they had concluded as a suicide, but a lot of people do suspect that he was murdered. But I think this theory is completely far-fetched for both of these theories, and I think this was just a little spin on how the Death Note could be real, but I doubt it. I really do. But I'd like to hear more about this theory if anybody can find more on it. And yeah, I guess that's it. So my final thoughts on this video just has to be, oh my god. This probably is the longest Iceberg video I've ever done, with this reaching close to an hour in its runtime. And I spent the majority of my spring break working on this video, taking time to work on one layer per day to hopefully have this done. And by the time I'm recording this, it is Sunday. So I want to have this video hopefully up by tomorrow, which is Monday for me, or Tuesday, depending on how long it takes me to finish up some editing. And that should be it. I do want to sincerely apologize if I got anything wrong in this video. I am sorry if I did, and I do apologize once again for the whole thing going on with the theories, because there were a lot of them I couldn't find, and I do really want to apologize about that. I am planning more Iceberg videos in the future. I am doing, of course, one per month because of how long it takes me to get the info. However, I do hope you all enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Comment down below what else you want me to talk about on my channel. I try to upload whenever I can, and I hope you guys have a great day or night depending on where you live. And I'll see you guys next time on my channel. Bye, guys.